Hello everyone, video 2 coming at you. So this video is going to be based on explaining all of the different stations. That being said, there are 10 stations, so I expect this to be a little lengthy. Don't feel obligated to watch the whole thing. Feel free to fast forward to the stations that you are covering, so you don't have to watch every little piece unless you would like to. That's your call. I will leave that decision up to you. I'm going to present a description. You guys will have these printed out for you. At each station, we'll also leave them in your mailboxes as part of your packet. So you guys have a visual. Okay, Station 1 is going to be Meteor Move, which is similar to last year. It looks like this in the picture. If you guys can see it, we'll show you guys in a minute. The goal is to work as a team to move the ball from one pole to the other. Last year, we got some feedback, I think, that was going a little bit too quickly. So we have also added cup stack, which is a similar exercise, but a different way to do it. When students get there, whoever is running this station, you're just demonstrating the equipment, what each thing does, how it works, so students are familiar. You can ask students, what skills are going to be important to be successful in either of these challenges. From there, I would break the students into 2 teams. There's probably 20 to 24 students, so probably teams of 10 or 12. And I would have one teacher kind of take each group of students. Have one group of students work on the meteor move, have another group of students work on the cup stack. You guys can choose if they finish whether you would like the groups of students to switch so they get to try the other game. Or if you want to try some of the challenges down here, we have different ways you can make each of the activities a little bit harder for the kids. So this activity, if we look behind us, again, same thing as last year. And there's a pole with a ball on top. There are 10 strings you guys can give to the students, so 10 students can actually do this at once. I'm just going to grab a handful because we don't feel like untangling them.
Yep.
They would come up. They're going to be more stretched out. Their goal is to balance this ball
slowly without dropping it. Hitting on it. Has to be on and go down. They'll be further apart, and it will definitely be a little more challenging for them.
Yes, I do remember last year being surprised at how good the students were at this.
So they're really good with the communicating part too.
Which is why we added. So our cup stack, have a rubber band with 4 strings tied to it. So you would have 4 students do this at once. I'm thinking we might have 2 of these set up so that 8 students can do this at once instead of rotating. Be on the screen here. Okay. So their goal, you're gonna have to pull the strings to open the rubber band. Pick up a cup.
Yep.
They might have to rotate it. We'll probably make that part of the challenge. They're going to move it across the table or floor. Carefully place it down. And then they'll have to work together to pick up the next cup.
They're not allowed to use their hands or on the cup at all. They have to use the string and rubber band.
Until they eventually make a pyramid. The goal, they'll have 6 cups, is to make a pyramid of 3, then 2, then 1. So it will take some balance and skill. Some of the challenges for that is when they're done, if they want to try to make the cups into a tower instead, if they want to try to make a bigger pyramid with 4, then 3, then 2, then 1, both of those would be acceptable challenges for that. So that is station 1.
Station 2, we did this last year as well. Don't lose your marble.
So the goal is to get a marble through all of the tubes. The tubes, there are 3 sets of them, 3 sets of 8, I believe. So you'd have 8 students working together at once. The goal is simply to get the marble from one tube all the way to the end without dropping. If it does drop, you can ask the students to start over. Again, I would start by demonstrating the equipment, how it works, going over what do you think will be important during this activity, how can we work together. There's a picture there if you guys need to kind of double check. This one, once the students are done in groups of 8, There's a lot of ways you can change this. So you can combine the sets. You can make 2 lines of 12 to make it a little bit longer. You can double the distance by having the first student run to the end of the line to try to catch the marble at the end and go for a further amount of time. Both of those would be ways to extend the activity if it's needed. 3 is a newer one.
Ooh,
it's
yes.
like our mirror image, kind of, but we're calling it picture telephone. So if you guys can see in this picture, I'll zoom in a little bit. The goal is to have students are going to partner up. One partner is going to draw on a piece of paper on the back of another student. Students, we figured, will be sitting at tables for this. So instead of holding it up to a wall like he's doing in the picture, it will be down on a table. So the goal is to have the person in the back draw either a picture or a word. We will provide those pictures or words for them. The students can actually just trace. We're going to have pictures pre-printed out. Students can trace over what's already there. And then the student in front has to try to guess what the person is drawing on their back by also drawing the picture.
You have to replicate it.
They have to, yes.
Which is quite
It's
challenging.
hard. We tried this morning. We weren't great at it. I won't lie. But it was very fun. We laughed a lot.
Yeah.
Do we need to demo that?
No,
I feel like they get the
yeah.
idea. They are not allowed to ask questions about what is getting drawn. So you can't be like, is it a mouse? Is it a cat? They should be asking things. You can say things like, slow down. Can you draw that part again? Can you go back and do that again until it's complete? And then they can compare drawings to see how close or very far away, in Melissa and I's case, the picture was.
And we're using washable markers, but also just make sure to reinforce with the students, we're not drawing on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They can be welcome to sit on the side if that is the case.
Yes.
Some challenges for this. I actually love this challenge. I hope whoever is running this gets to the challenge, is to make it telephone. So have one person draw on the back. That person is then trying to draw on the person in front of them. And then that person is trying to draw out what the picture is. So if you see in this picture, there's 3 people instead of 2. So much more challenging. And I think that would be a very big laugh for students. So I do kind of hope they get there for that.
Reverse charades.
Station 4, also a new one, reverse charades. This is similar to headbands if you guys have played headbands with your kids or family, which I know is a popular game. This is just, instead of using a phone, they have actual cards. So the goal is to work as a team to silently act out a word together. So I would start by having the students, giving them a number 1 through 4 and having them separate into groups of 1, 2, 3, or 4. We're going to have teams 1 and 2 verse each other in one section, and then you're going to have teams 3 and 4 verse each other in another. So it might be easiest to have one teacher take each of those groups. The rules are pretty simple. One person is going to sit in a hot seat. So let's say I was guessing. Someone else, most likely the teacher, would be holding up words behind my head so I can't see them. Then in front of me, the rest of my team is going to be acting out whatever word is on the card. Once me, the guesser, guesses it, I think one of those was basketball. Mm-hmm. The person holding it is going to flip to the next card. And the goal is how many words can you guess in a given amount of time? The technical rules are a minute. That usually goes by pretty fast. So I put on there anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes. I'm going to leave that up to whoever is running the station to kind of make that call based on how much time is left. But some of the rules for this, they're not allowed to make sound effects. They can skip a word, but they're only supposed to skip once per round. If you notice a team is super struggling, obviously adjust that. And then go over what is acceptable. So if the word is marriage, accept married, getting married. Don't be so specific with it, but don't accept proposal. So it needs to be the word or some variation of the rule, the word. I linked the official rules for reverse charades if whoever is running this wants to look at their actual website. And then if people are done early, you can go through multiple rounds, have kids go again. I've played this with my students in class. They typically tend to love this and get very into it. So I don't think they're going to get bored if you want to just keep going for multiple rounds. Or if you want, have the students act it out for the teacher. I'm sure they will love that as well. Mm-hmm. They can rotate who's guessing if there's extra time, etc. Station 5.
Going on a trip. So we did this one last year. This is really all about testing your memory and your active listening skills. So you want to start by just explaining to the students, we're going to be pretending to pack items for going on a trip that are by the alphabet. So students are going to move through the alphabet and they're going to pick something with each letter, and they're going to also repeat the ones that come before them. So for example, I'd be number 1. I'd say, I'm going on a trip and I'm going to bring an apple. And then the next person would go, I'm going on a trip and I'm going to bring an apple and a banana. So you need to make sure that they're going through the alphabet, sorry. And the goal is to try to get all the way through the whole alphabet. So as you go along and you get to like M, that's going to be a lot harder for them to remember as they go through. There are going to be little cheat sheets with the alphabet for our students who need it. You want to make sure that you ask them at the beginning, like, how are we going to be successful? What are some strategies for remembering and for listening to each other? And then you just keep going. And I think we have challenges. Oh, you could break it into smaller groups for a challenge if they finish quickly, so that people have to remember more and more. Or you could even do a theme. So I'm going on a trip and I'm going to bring, and then it should all be about food or all about animals. So that makes it a little more challenging to come up with.
Our next station is the jump rope challenge. I actually love this station, although it seems to be hard to explain.
Yes.
So we ended up kind of breaking this down step by step for the kids. So the jump rope challenge, long and short, is the kids have to run under a jump rope. So the biggest thing is the 2 teachers that are running this, just make sure the rope is rotating in the right way so kids don't actually have to jump over the rope. They are running underneath it. So make sure you're rotating it away from students as they're going. When we started this last year, we started pretty simple. Just ask the students, what skills do you need to run under a rope? We started last year by lining the kids up single file and have them practice running under the rope. No rules.
Yep,
They're
one at a time.
Getting used to it, running under the rope. After that, explain there's going to be different challenges. They're going to line up single file again. And this time they're going to run under the rope, but they need to go one at a time with no skips. So the rope should never turn without someone underneath it. If the rope turns and someone doesn't make it under in time, simply stop the rope and start over. We counted the rounds as students were going through this last year. So for one student at a time, it would just be 1, 2, 3 to see how many times they can go underneath the rope without it skipping. What they need to remember is if it's only a class of 20 and they're at 20, the students, once they finish, need to run back around.
Get back
so they have students at the end to keep going under. I think last year our highest was around like 42. They got 42 rounds going underneath. Once they have that down pat, you're going to make it harder. Next, they need to follow a pattern to go under the rope. So they're going to have to send through 1 student, then 2, then 1, then 2, then 1, then 2. If, again, with no skips. So if there's a skip, rope goes down, start again. If they don't follow that pattern, so if they send 1 student and then 1 student, the rope stops and they have to start over. The goal is, again, to keep track of how many times they're able to follow that pattern. I think, honestly, that was like in the 20s. For some reason, they were better at the 3s last year. But that takes a lot of communication.
Yes.
So we had some groups.
You go, 2 of you now. Okay, now one of us go. Like, they have to really talk it out who's going to go and how many people.
A lot of groups last year had the great idea of lining people up 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, but then didn't realize as students were running back around, if the numbers weren't perfectly even or odd or whatever it was, that pattern didn't hold the second time around. So then they had to panic and adjust really quick.
But it was good strategy.
It was. The third challenge, same thing, but now we're going 1 student, 2 students, 3 students. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Same thing as the first challenge. If they don't follow that pattern or it skips, stop the rope and count over. They were oddly better at this. I feel like they got up to the 30s was their highest last year.
They did good with that one. Once they got the hang of it, they were just flying through.
They'll start realizing they need to communicate pretty well. Some of our more successful groups actually kick someone out of the line, and they were like, you're going to coach, you're going to help.
You're the leader.
Really kind of be like, you go, 2 go, 3 go. And they got pretty good at it by the end. I didn't put any challenges for this. This should take up the whole time. If you want to go up to 4 or do a speed round, at the end, ask kids what challenge they liked the best and they can repeat it. But we didn't need any extra time for this last year. Station 7 is just going to be simply some relay races. Your goal is to get your team across the finish line first. So we have 2 different ones. We have over under, which I'm now realizing I did not type in, so I will explain that. But they're both pretty self-explanatory. The goal is to split the group into 2 teams, or you could do 3 teams or 4 teams if you want. That's fine. It might be more fun because there's less kids, so they might have more to do, up to whoever is running the station. They're going to compete in different relay races. So the goal is to get all the way across a field. It's not just to get to the end of your team. The first relay is simply over under. So they're going to get a ball of some sort. And they're going to stand single file. So you should start with it. First person's going to go over. Next person has to pass under. And then the first person has to run behind. Right.
So it keeps going.
Correct. Keep following that pattern until you get all the way down the field. Whoever gets down the first field first wins. We put a lovely caveat for our students in there that they are not allowed to chuck it over the finish line and say that they won. They must pass it to someone to win. The second one is a hula hoop race. I think we've all seen this before. Same concept. They're going to hold hands and slide a hula hoop, climb through it, and try to get it down while not releasing each other's hands. Same thing, the person in the front is going to have to run to the end so the line can keep going all the way down. Oh, I did type things in. I thought I did. They're all at the bottom with pictures. Look at me go.
We just had an extra row for some reason.
We will adjust the spacing on this.
Yeah. Asteroid field. I love this one. So we did this last year. We're going to change it a little bit because it became too easy for some of them and it also was too crowded. So the idea is there's going to be an obstacle course set up in the field. There'll be 2 separate ones so you can have 2 teams. And all over the field, there'll be like little hurdles and cones and things they can go under or have to walk around. And they need to have their team members who are blindfolded be able to get from one side of the asteroid field all the way to the other without running into any asteroids, so without hitting a cone.
So we had said, I think the goal was to pick 3 team members that you wanted to be blindfolded.
Right. And then you needed to figure out how are you going to get those team members all the way across? Are you going to have one person direct all of them at once? Are you going to have all 3 of them go at once and each one has someone directing? The biggest thing with this is the students cannot guide by touching each other. It has to be verbal, right? So if Caitlin's going and she's blindfolded and I see there's something in her way, I'm going to be like, oh, quick, step to the left, right? Or I'll tell her, oh, you have to walk over this. And so they really need to work on communication to be able to get there. And this was challenging for them when it was the correct amount of stuff. So we'll have lots of obstacles for them. And I don't know if we put a challenge for that one.
I think we put, you can just move the obstacles to make it a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
If you want 2 people to go together, hold hands to kind of get through
tricky. Yeah, 2 people blindfolded holding hands. I can only imagine.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. But yeah, this one's pretty easy. They just need to make sure that they're directing the blindfolded students from one side to the other.
I'm debating if we should maybe have, say, the person calling or directing can't be actually in the obstacle course. They have to be to the side.
That might be better.
So then it's like shouting and it's really now listening. You have to listen for your
That is a great idea. Yeah, because last year they stood right next to them and it was a little too easy. So they'll be on the sides. The people directing will be on the sidelines.
Be like, go left, step under.
Excellent.
And then with this activity, what we noticed last year too, if students are not going, just emphasize when you're not going, sit to the side and cheer your team on. We don't need to be involved or running around or climbing all over each other.
Yeah, that was a problem.
Hula hoop, rock, paper, scissors. We did this last year. This is one of my favorites also. There's going to be 20 hula hoops lined up on the field. Start by explaining the activity and then splitting the students into 2 groups. One group will be at one side, the other group will be at the other side. Their goal is to try to get one of their players all the way through their hoops to the other side before the other team. So when you say go, each team has a student start hopping through the hoops and they meet in the middle. They play rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Whoever wins gets to keep hopping. Whoever loses needs to exit the hula hoop. As soon as someone loses, they should send another member of their team to start going through the hoops. There's a little video clip. That makes this a little bit easier.
Yeah, when you see it, it's much easier.
Make sure I'm presenting the right tab. After this short word from our sponsor, Grammarly.
Are you?
The kid that loses gets out, and the other team has sent someone else to meet the winning boy in that one team. But now he exits, so she gets a chance to move further down the hula hoops. So you're trying to get one of your team members all the way through before the other team gets down.
Which means the people who are in line waiting have to be paying close attention so that they're ready to start going. And they actually, they were good with that. They were really cheering each other on and like ready to go.
Yes.
They got really excited.
That's a fun one.
That is definitely one of my favorites.
I don't know if we had any team win last year. I don't think a single team got all the way to this side in a time limit. But if they do and you want a challenge, I would say challenge how students move through the hoops. Maybe they frog leap. Maybe they have to go backwards to the hoops. Maybe they have to go on one foot, just to add a little bit of a variation.
And last one.
Sod surfing. This one has been a classic, so I think we all know what sod surfing is at this point, unless this is your first IPASS. We have these lovely sod surfers that Steph bought for us this year. 4 people can fit on them at once. Yeah. You literally cannot move it unless all 4 people are working together to pick up their foot at the same time.
Yeah.
The goal is simply to get your team across the finish line first. I would start by demonstrating how the sod surfers work, asking again what's going to be important to be successful in the challenge. Again, emphasize for students who are waiting on the side what you should be doing when you're waiting on the side. And then separate the group into 2 teams. Nominate 4 students to go first. They can nominate a coach if they would like to help them go 1, then 2, then 1, then 2. And then the students can rotate in. And you can keep track. So if one team wins one round, the other team wins another round, you can kind of keep track.
And I noticed last year, a lot of them, when they first started and it was challenging for them, as they're trying to move forward, they're moving out instead. They're like separating their legs instead of going forward. Like they get really confused at first.
We have these splits.
Yeah, and then you have to like falling over. But most of them got it after a few minutes. They were like, oh, okay. And then they were able to do it. But it's the timing and it's the communication. Because if she goes 2 seconds before me, it won't work. It's gone.
It's amazing how much you literally just don't move.
Yeah.
Challenges, if you're done early, you could try it with less students. Try to stick 2 students on the sod surfers instead of 4. Set a time. Can you guys get across the field in X amount of time? Or try it backwards.
Oh, God.
If you need some entertainment, have them go backwards. Why not?
Let me know. I want to see.
So those are our 10 stations. Again, these will be printed for you guys. We'll grant you access to this doc so you guys can view it and look through it. And then let us know if you have any questions.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.